All right, guys. So we're going to go over. We went over so many sources of places that you can get information. A lot of them are app-based. We're going to talk about the theory of what intelligence is and vetted sources of intelligence like Genesis, Pulse Point, the Alert San Diego, and then we're going to talk about stuff that's not vetted. So that would be things like Watch Duty, pulls in from a lot of different places. And how we can use all those different data sources to come up with a concept of what's going on to support the evacuation effort. I want to talk about the pool thing really quick. The people that jumped in the pool, Thomas pretty much covered it, but we do have a case study from 2017, the Tubbs or the Nuns fire. And then Thomas also mentioned the time wedge and the firefighters and the special operations community and some other communities, probably SGD has talked ad nauseum about this, but there will be a point in time where there will be an unintended outcome where something happens that you didn't want to have happen. So it could be car wreck, child coming into your life, anything like that, wildfire, right, for this one. So everything that happens before that moment is the big side of the time wedge. And our ability to make choices happens in this space here. So today, we're not quite out of fire season, but we're hoping to come into the wet season. We have more options to train. Now we're talking about wildfires, right? We have time to cut your brush, time to get your ember screens on, get a good maintenance service on your car as you come into the spring. And then as we move closer into fire season, we have less and less time and less options until at some point Genesis is going to go off or Pulse Point, and you'll be here, and it'll be, okay, it's time to evacuate. Well, you still have some room. Or if we were just looking at that moment, maybe you're still on the big side of the time wedge. Does that make sense? I'm talking about time wedge. So when Mr. Murdoch talked about how our brains kind of function when we get scared, you stop thinking clearly. Now we start to do a little bit of training, and we have a framework to work through for these disasters, so it becomes less scary and more of a process for people to apply. So good job for coming out today, taking some time to train. Okay, there's some cool studies in here. We don't have time to do how the lady in the wheelchair survived the Tubbs fire, but that's a cool story. She lived. There's the cool. These are all cool stories here. Okay. Slideshow. Here we go. So this one got a lot of notoriety in the post-Tubbs. I can't remember. Does anyone know if it's Tubbs or Nuns? Doesn't really matter. But, Santa Rosa area, 2017. The Pasco family were thrust into popularity because they jumped in the pool and they lived. So two things happened. They lived and they jumped in the pool. So the correlation isn't causation in this case. It was a good story. So there's one of the things we see right off the bat. These are just screenshots I pulled from LA Times or some open source platform. Was do we got a laser on this one?
No, sorry.
Okay. You guys notice anything about the pool, the wildlife net here?
Some of it melted.
Yeah, some of it's melted. We got a ringer in the box.
Wait a minute.
So we could. There you go. Someone's got a laser. Forensically, we can go back and examine the temperatures that were present there based on the damage to those things. So if we were going to go into chemistry, Thomas, what a guy!
It was in his go bag.
We could find the melting point of this vinyl fence. And then, at what temperature damage occurs to the human airway. So this was an interesting, I thought the story was really interesting here. And also in the background, see, we got trees that are burned here, and then we've got some that are not burned here. Still a very hellacious experience. Here's the house before this was not their house. They lived up the road, and they left too late for whatever reason. I think they were sleeping and they missed the alert. At that point, it doesn't really matter why, because you're there. So they have a little bit of clearing, but this is heavy, essentially closed oak and pine canopy. In a healthy ecosystem, the oaks are resistant to wildfire, but this is not healthy. And then what do we got right here? What's this called? This piece of. Okay, that's a good one. There's another one.
Death ditch.
Okay, yeah, it's all right. So what does fire like to do when it gets in these?
It runs hard.
In the canyons or the draws, it runs hard? Yeah, so it funnels it. Just like much the way that water would flow, the fire will be funneled. The wind will increase. And they happen to be immediately adjacent. The fire was up here, and it came basically straight aligned in that canyon like that. Wow. So this is the after. This is the after. So these are pretty significant. Same perspective. Wow. All the pockets of white are houses that were complete combustion. When we're talking about the open source intelligence platforms, we can see where firefighting efforts took place because some of that ash will be black from it didn't go through the complete combustion cycle. So we can actually see forensically from space where firefighters were able to make a standalone structure, a partial stand. So anyways, that's where they were, right there. So that's the pool right there where we see this photo. You guys tracking?
Yep.
And this is all done. I have no secret passwords, any kind of imagery. I don't have an account to LA Times or whatever. This is all something you guys could go home and do right now. And then we'll see why this is significant. So here we go. So we've got some light damage, a lot of damage here, not much damage here.
How is that?
How?
Yeah, why did that side get burned?
Great question. So what do we know about, does fire like to burn up or down generally? Yeah, so in the absence of wind, fire's going to burn up. This is looking southish, so the fire came like this at them. And I wasn't there for this. I was on the fire, but not at this pool. Here's the people. They look survivory. Like they're outdoor. This probably played into the survival psychology. She's clearly had a lot of sun exposure. Probably recreated outside hiking. They chose to live in the backcountry area. Moving through the terrain probably wasn't foreign to them. These are all assumptions. I don't know anything about them, but that's something to think about. And then this is kind of cool, the little shrub back here. Yeah. And these chairs, these don't have any damage to them. And nor does the net is, slightly melted up there, but down here at the bottom, there's no damage. There's no chipping or spalling. There's no sooting or staining or other things that we look at in fire investigation. So this is why those people lived. What Thomas mentioned earlier is they didn't inhale the superheated gases and burn their airway. It was not the ability for this pool to absorb the heat. Because this pool can absorb a tremendous amount of energy. That's why the power plant at the Carlsbad power plant, they have that big cooling outlet that goes out into the ocean. Because all that water can absorb tremendous amounts of energy. And that was not what happened here. They actually got hypothermia from this incident because it's cold, it's nighttime, it's fall or winter, and the winds are blowing. You look perplexed.
But if they'd been in the house, they would have burned.
Well, we don't. Maybe.
The house is down.
The house burned all the way to the ground, but it didn't burn instantly. So I'm not advocating staying behind and waiting for your house to catch on fire. Yeah. They were running. They came from up here. They were running on foot in the darkness, and so they got down there. They may have been able to stay in the house until the house became untenable, and then go outside to the edge of the pool and have the same result. I don't know.
So they were out running at night?
Hiking
at night, and then
they fled their house, and I can't remember if they fled in their vehicle or on foot, but at some point,
They couldn't go any further.
they
came back.
one of these vehicles could very well be theirs. You can go back on Google Earth, and you can, up here, you can roll the imagery back
Oh, wow.
and see, we've got a bunch of other case studies that are like, some are a couple weeks before the fire happened. So it's a very powerful tool.
So I think what I heard you say was getting in the pool was maybe plan C or D or E.
It could be. I wish we had time to go into the planning models and stuff, but we're gonna go over some of the theory behind the intelligence and what Mr. Murdoch was talking about, vetted platforms that come from an official source, and open source stuff. Open source intelligence is stuff that you guys can get. That would be like going to one of the weather pages and looking at the data coming off those before it gets synthesized into another product. Okay, so we've got the raw output that comes out of the sensors. So there's a weather station down the street. There's a stream gauge in the creek that says 1 foot or 10 miles per hour up at Lake Hodges. That's just data. It doesn't really mean anything. Once we think about that data and it actually means something. So if you live by Lake Hodges, you see it gusting to 30 miles an hour, and you thought, oh man, maybe I'm going to buy some extra case of water or get gas for a generator. That has become information, and then if you actually go take action, that's when it becomes intelligence. Okay. Anyone want to snap a picture while it's up? Someone, okay. The big one here for us as civilians is the field of open source intelligence. If you put this in whatever search engine of your choice, some of you will probably go down the rabbit hole. There's some really good YouTube tutorials of basic open source intelligence, the theory and different platforms that you can use. There are civilians that fight crime. There's a really cool one called "Don't F with Cats." Anyone read that?
Yep.
Yeah, write it down. It really. So there's a guy that was torturing and murdering cats in his apartment and posting them online. And some people saw it and they're like, "This is messed up." The law enforcement didn't have the resources to chase this guy down because the crime was too low on the totem pole. So for years, people will look at the videos and someone saw a vacuum cleaner in the background, and so they found what model it was, and then it was discontinued in 2007, and this was a current video. So the guy, they're like, well, who services vacuums? And they found like 3 shops in the world that still, and so then they narrowed it down to the country that they were in, because the guy didn't know. And then there was one clip had just like a tiny piece of skyline in the background, and it was pixelated, and they did some stuff, but none of these people were law enforcement. None of them had advanced degrees in intelligence. They were just regular people like you and me. So that's the power of that. They had the luxury of time. In a fire evacuation, we have time. We don't have as much as we like, but we do have time. A couple other fields. Signals intelligence would be turning on your AM radio to KOGO when all the other platforms have failed and listening to the radio for intelligence. What about, I know there's at least one ham operator in the room. Any other? Oh, there's 2. Yeah, there's 2. In the back too? 3? Wow, okay. Awesome. So that's a scanner. Some people use it through Broadcastify, the apps on the phone, but when the cell phone or the data architecture crashes, those platforms will crash as well. So a scanner or a radio, this one is $30. You can get one for $15. It listens to the wildland fire frequencies.
We also broadcast our fire through Pulse Point.
Yeah.
So people want to listen to our fire signals.
Nice.
We don't do the medical and other stuff, but just our house fires and vegetation fires are on Pulse Point.
Good. Human intelligence?
that video, Don't F with Cats, is on Netflix.
Okay, good. Yeah, I would recommend watching that.
Yeah.
Because you can apply all those strategies to fire, right? And to your evacuation. Human is cool. That would be like catching Thomas or Mike on a break. Say there's a new fire. Like, hey, what did you hear about that? Or stopping at the CHP red block and asking, what do you know about how long this closure going to last? And they may ignore you or they may not, or that's a social interaction. Imagery intelligence. This was a picture that I took with my friend Johnny Q down on by the border, and Thomas and I had been teaching earlier that day, and there was a fire down there, so I split Griffith with Julian, and I didn't see this till like a year later. But this is a group of migrants that are coming across in the back of the picture. We're down in Morone Valley in Telzura. But what are things that you can tell from this picture without knowing anything else?
Well, you guys weren't paying attention to your resources.
Yeah, okay. What else?
It's dry.
Okay, yeah, so seasonality, right? So the annual grasses are cured. So probably sometime after May or June when the grass turns brown. What else?
It says they're on the road.
Okay, so there's at least one road, maybe two roads.
I
So
think
now,
you're facing north.
okay, yeah, good. So how did you figure that?
The sun always travels in the south sky.
Okay, good. So we've established seasonality. Then we could know time of day.
Yep.
And what angle the sun was at. We know that we're a place where there's two roads right here.
People look rather healthy for being migrant.
Looks like someone's running.
Yeah, a lot of regular people coming up.
No, I'm
Was
glad
it
they
not-
look healthy. Yeah.
Clothing?
Got a lot of clothing on, so it's not hot, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah, so it's probably not 100 degrees. So now you could go back and look at weather records, right? And why are these guys here wearing protective gear?
Fire safety.
So there's a fire. So fire records are publicly available. So you would be able to, you could start correlating all those things. The AIs will be able to do this soon for you, but right now you still have to do it on your own, which is cool. Okay, so when we're talking about evacuations, it's really important that you listen to whatever authority it is. This case, it's going to be the law enforcement agencies, and that is the official authority for the evacuations. Sometimes the information flow is coming too slow, and we may need to formulate our own decision to evacuate before we get told. So we're going to go, so when the Palisades fire was going on, I watched some of the news cameras and some of the alert wildfire cameras, and just to get some material. This was just a cool picture. But there's a new fire in the Palisades. And there's a new fire up in Altadena, happened pretty close in time. So this is up by Mount Wilson, looking into Los Angeles. So there's two new fires that are large, and then another fire broke out called the Sunset Fire right in the Hollywood Hills. And we're like, oh crap.
It's homeless though, right?
So we pulled up the cameras here, the alert wildfire cameras, and we picked two cameras that had the fire in their view shed. So this blue cone is called the view shed, and that's what you can see. So if it's really broad like this, it's zoomed all the way out, and when it starts to get narrow, it's zoomed in quite a bit. So the camera's going to be more accurate the way it's zoomed in. But these two fires, these two cameras each had the fire in their view shed. So I think this one and this one right here. So where they cross is really close to where the fire is. You guys start to see how this would be relevant. So you got an alert on pulse point. Does everyone have pulse point or know what it is in here? Most of you guys are repeat offenders for the class. So you see a thing up by Lake Hodges, and it says there's a new fire on Lake Hodges. You're like, okay, crap. pull up the cameras, and you see that 2 cameras each have the smoke column or the glow if it's at night within their view shed. And you can pinpoint it down to right there. So now you've taken data from the cameras, you've turned it into information, because now I know where the fire is, and then when you decide to act on it, that you've turned that into intelligence. So what could the decision be once you know there's a fire in your neighborhood or community?
You know where to
Get out.
evacuate,
Okay, get out, yep, the decision to evacuate, know which way to
know
go.
which way to go.
Yeah, okay, because there could be a situation on which way you would go, right? Depending on where the fire is relative to your position. So here is a little bit closer. Palisades fire was over on this side, over here. And the Eaton fire was over here on the other side of the valley. And now Hollywood they went from warning to order to evacuate. And I
Did
took
you
this,
think it was arson or was this all weather?
Yeah, did they ever find out
I
what
don't know.
caused all of it?
I don't know.
No
Thomas, do you
one
know
knows.
officially?
I don't think any causes have been released on any of them.
So then we looked at the traffic map, and there's a lot of red. There's traffic incidents popping up. I mean, they were popping up as we were watching this. So the traffic map is a phenomenal resource to use with other data like this. You need to go back one or
Oh,
forward.
down.
Is the traffic map part of which?
There's a couple different platforms that you can get traffic maps on. One is Google, has a Google Maps down here in the layers tab, I think, has a live traffic function, and it's more like 10 to 15 to 20 minutes live. So it synthesizes based off of the location tracking for your phone and probably some other secret stuff we don't know about. And this would be a really valuable tool for helping aid your decision. We don't want to base it all on one thing. So this was Ukraine back in 2022. People fleeing to the west, into Poland.
At least they were off the side of the road.
They do seem more orderly.
Yes.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's cultural or societal. I don't know.
Maybe those are
Off the
parked
car and
cars.
walk.
Yeah, so we had this. Thomas talked about on Palisades Fire, people that got out of their cars and made the decision to abandon their vehicle and travel on foot. And we don't, at the time, they didn't know if that was right or wrong. And we don't want to pass judgment on them from the luxury of the police department training room. But all these people made that decision too. It looks like traffic's not moving. They got out and walked on foot. I brought that up because this is, you have here, all of the westbound travel routes are jammed up in red. And this was as it was happening, as people were evacuating. This tool that's available to us here, you use that at your discretion. You know, if you get evacuate, like Hodges to the west, you could pull up the traffic map right away and see if there's heavy traffic. Okay, we're gonna skip some stuff. And I wanna go to the cameras. Okay. This name has changed, it's Alert CA now, and that's a very robust network of fire cameras that are a mitigation fund from the power companies and a research network. So the AI processes all these images that are always streaming, always watching, and they can detect smoke. Once there's an incident, or if someone chooses to, an authority, they can take control of the camera and they can aim it at certain things. So within a few minutes of there being a fire, most of these cameras that can see it will turn to the fire. So that's exactly what happened when we go back to this one. If you actually were to click on it down here, you can see the credential of the person. So it might say T shoots And we'll oftentimes see the names of the dispatcher in the San Diego unit, fire dispatch. They've aimed the camera there, so that helps us a lot on where. I use it as a response tool because we'll get an address or a location for a fire, but depending on what side of the mountain it's on, I might take the 805 all the way south and to come down the border, or Highway 94 to come all the way around from the other side, depending on where the fire is. So the reverse of responding in would be evacuating out, and that would be a really valuable tool for you guys. How about commercial flight trackers? Anybody used one of these before? A few hands go up. These are great.
It's cool to watch the OV-10s,
Yeah.
Beechcraft circle. You can tell where they're fired.
So I saw a few hands. This is this is my favorite platform. It's not the most powerful one, but for the average user, this is a really cool platform. When the aircraft take off, they have a little beacon that pings out their location and it goes into a database, and then these free commercial flight trackers will track them. So you can track your kid that has a flight from San Diego to Sacramento. You can put their flight number in and you can follow the aircraft to see if it gets there safely or to know what time to actually pick them up from the airport. But in the field of intelligence, we're looking at the flight path of these aircraft. Once you become familiar with the types of aircraft, or even if you're not, you can see that one of these aircraft is circling heavily in this area right here. Why do you think that an aircraft would be making like 50 circles in one place?
We can't land.
Okay, that's reasonable. All right, what else? Good try.
Surveillance.
Yeah, surveillance. Anything else?
You're making it really hard to answer these questions,
Well, I want you guys to be thinking.
Flight training.
Yeah, flight training, good. So this is the AirTac platform, and they coordinate the airspace and with the ground firefight. So there's something really interesting to that aircraft right here. So they're flying in circles. They're talking the tankers in where they want them, then they're coordinating with the resources on the ground. So it's a pretty safe bet that there's a really good firefight going on down there right now.
How much firefighting happens in the air now versus on land? It seems
I'm sorry?
How much firefighting happens on air versus land? It seems like there's a lot more plane use than there used to be, for sure.
There's been some new contracts, and some contracts have been kicked off because they didn't meet certain standards. Like we used to have the 747, but it's the way it dispersed didn't meet the standards, so they kicked it off with new. Shouldn't say new. Decommissioned commercial aircraft have come into the firefighting service, like the 737s, the Q800s. There's some other MDE 87s or
C5s.
I haven't seen any C5s. I've seen C-130s that have a slip-in unit in the back. But that's cool if they have C5s.
They still use the DC-9s.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Palisades had DC-9s and DC-10s.
Cool.
I
So,
just wanted to mention, I work for Supervisor Jim Desmond, your county supervisor, and he put forth an item of purchasing a twin-engine firefighting helicopter for San Diego.
another one?
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. Oh, yeah, because he feels we need to be over-prepared, because as I know, we're getting away from fire season. We all think it's fire season all year round. So he's done that. So that's coming down.
Good. Yeah, I love the county's resources are nice because they don't typically leave the county unless there's, maybe like a rescue like right over the county line or something like that. We've come, especially in Southern California, become heavily dependent on having aerial assets available almost all the time. But once it gets too windy, we can't have them because they become ineffective.
Yeah, but they said this particular helicopter, or the ones that were critical to the LA fire, that really made a difference were these type of helicopters, because you can run them day and night, and 365 days a year.
Okay, question in the back.
Does this app show like every little craft also, or just
It
like?
shows everything that has their ADSB transmitter turned on. So sometimes military will, and sometimes they won't.
Okay. Well, I wonder about chemtrails and all those planes that fly all over. Is that on the flight tracker too? So
The commercial aircraft
Yeah.
that fly over, yes, yeah. So if you have a theory that's interesting to you,
Yeah.
all of these open source platforms are really good to use. If you're looking for real time satellite imagery, NWS and NOAA, as they're being dismantled, have data. NASA has some really good satellite imagery. So anyways, if we go back here, this aircraft is circling, and we go back to the fire camera. Oops, we're gonna go forward, sorry. So that aircraft is circling right there. And if I turned on the view shed for this camera, we would see that the aircraft is, both those camera sight lines cross right there. So what does that tell us? We've got this on the webcam, and we know where it is because the two lines are crossing, and then we have a commercial flight tracker showing a ton of aircraft in your neighborhood. What are you guys thinking at this point?
They're on it.
They're on it? Okay.
Geo coordinates alerts.
You could get coordinates off that. And then, if we were to pull up traffic map, we would see, wow, this is closed, and why is the closed highway have red traffic designation on it?
It stands still.
Maybe traffic.
Okay, yeah, so there's a lot of vehicles not moving.
Yeah.
So that could be either there's civilians jammed up there, or it could be that there's 10 fire engines, and each fire engine has 4 people in it, and each person has a cell phone in their pocket, and they're all engaged in a firefight right here. So all of these things they're not connected by the programs, but you can connect them in your brain to come up with a decision on which way you're going to evacuate. This is one of my favorite ones. So you call 911 from a cell phone, it goes to CHP, and it's going to pop up in their computer here before it goes to the local dispatch center. Is that right, Mr. Murdoch?
I'm sorry, we got a fire.
So 911 in California goes to CHP dispatch first.
No.
No?
So it depends on your location. If you're on the freeway, it goes to CHP, but if you're in the city of Escondido, it goes directly to our dispatch.
Okay, so they know. Awesome. So many times we'll see wildfires in the backcountry pop up 2 or 3 minutes here before we'll hear a fire dispatch for them. So this is a resource that you all have available. You can choose the border is our communication center and all of the things that they have going. I picked this one because it said there was a golf cart versus pedestrian. Yeah, somebody had too many beers on the ninth hole.
At 9:50 a.m. even.
Yeah, good. See, so you just did a little bit of intelligence right there. 9:50 a.m. Someone,
Started the party early.
yeah, they started the party early. Maybe they never stopped. This is a really powerful wind app, windy.com. It takes, you can get forecasts. So when you get a forecast, that's a synthesized projection. So right now we're looking at the actual sensor data coming off of these. And how would that be relevant to a rapidly spreading wildfire?
Which way the fire's going to go.
Yeah, generally. So the last big one we had was the Border 2 fire, and it started as east wind fire. So down on the border, the wind was coming from the interior, and it was all blowing out to sea. And then on day 3, the wind shifted, and it all came from the ocean and blew it back into itself, which we knew was going to happen because we have forecasts. And everyone has pulse point in here? Everybody familiar with pulse point? This is a really good one. If I told the mother of my child she only has one, to use pulse point, because if there's a fire in your neighborhood, it's going to pop up here, it shows you where it's at, it tells you a little bit about what's going on, the resources that are responding, the time. This is tied to their to their dispatch computer, and so you'll get initially what the call taker knew at the time, and it's good for initial incidents as they start. Would you guys agree? Yeah, anything you wanted to add about that platform?
I'll actually pull it up and hit the speaker button, and even though it's a pretty significant delay, usually 45 to 60 seconds, for me it buys me time, and a lot of times I'll fill in on PIO or help out Mike. And the challenge we have is we'll be on the phone with media trying to give them information of all the scanners going. So if I miss something on our regular radio traffic, I'll be able to pick it up on the pulse point because with that delay, I'm like, oh, I think he just gave a size up, but I totally missed it. So give it another 30 seconds, and I'll hear it come back around, and so it's kind of helpful that way. It's not a perfect tool because it's picking up the scanner traffic just like Broadcastify would. They overlap multiple channels, so you'll hear the traffic and stuff like that, sometimes blending over. But it's just another way to get some information about what's going on really easily, all in one app. And if you see the resources, if you see if the fire was dispatched 20 minutes ago, and suddenly you see more and more resources turning red and more resources being added onto it, you can know even without anybody telling you, like, hey, this thing may be getting big because they seem to not be clearing resources. In fact, more and more stuff is showing up on scene. When we show up to a fire that ends up being nothing, or we're unable to locate, you'll see stuff start to get grayed out. It ends up being one or two resources that are red, and you're like, okay, maybe not anything this time.
Excellent. So this is a vetted source of information. This doesn't tell you officially to evacuate, but this comes from the agency. So it's part of their computer dispatch. So this is legitimate when you get one. This isn't a rumor someone made up that there might be fire. Yes.
I'm looking at a residential fire right now, and it's got assigned units in, what's it, timer 3?
I don't know.
So it's what they. Oh, go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
So our dispatch starts a timer when the call is dispatched, so that they can let the incident commander know how much time is elapsing. There's a lot of things that are going on. He's got people going in and out. There's rehab so they'll give him 10-minute reminders. This is your 10-minute time check. This is your 20-minute time check. They'll keep it going as long as they're still usually in an offensive or defensive mode. But once the fire is kind of under control or knocked down, sometimes they then cancel the timer. So it's just one of the things that they start along with all the units to manage how far they are into the incident.
Okay.
So,
And it's got a B, that's battalion,
mhm.
E for engines, RA for,
Rescue ambulance
and then T131.
truck. That's a truck with a big ladder on it.
Must be a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's an apartment building. Actually, if you hit this, not to mess up the thing, but if you were to hit the speaker right now,
Yeah.
you can actually hear the fire calls.
Do it.
There you go.
Yeah, we could probably pull up the cameras too and probably see some smoke.
You might. It's right over here. I have to walk outside. It's not too far from Palomar Hospital.
So that's a structure fire. You know, if it's wildland fire, we could pull up flight radar. You know, we'll start to see the helicopters, the air tankers start showing up, and then we'll know exactly where it is. And then what else? What other resource do we learn about? Traffic. We can see where the traffic's jammed up. Okay, yeah, here's a little bit more. So different statuses of the equipment. Here's the logo, Pulse Point Respond. If anyone wants help installing these, we can do it real quick after class. Here are some of the ones that I have only selected: vegetation fire and confirmed vegetation fire, because there's too much noise coming off. Like a car wreck, I don't need my phone to go off at 2 in the morning because someone crashed their car or has chest pain. I really don't want to know about these fires. Watch duty has come a long way from its infancy, and I was really not into it in the beginning, but it pulls from a lot of different data sources. Some stuff we didn't cover, and it puts it all into one product. And it's a synthesized product. They've adopted the Genesis evacuation zones. It is not the authority. So I wouldn't really say that this is a vetted resource. It's a tool that you can use to aid your understanding of the situation. Here's the one thing. So there's retired wildland firefighters, which are some of the worst rumor spreaders, and reporters are the two least reliable sources of information. But it's a good platform. So that's another one. You can get the app, or you can run it in your web browser if you want. And it'll have links to the cameras, to the fire cameras that have the best view. So if you don't want to go separately to the web camera page, you can get to it through Watch Duty. Sometimes it has links to scanners. It'll oftentimes have the fire perimeter map, which is usually an outdated product. But oftentimes it pulls from maps.nwcg.gov, which pulls from a couple different data sources. So all these purple dots are new wildland fires that were created in a dispatch center from the computer. Whether they developed into major fires would be yet to be seen, but clicking on each one of these icons will bring up certain layers of information about those. This is a really good resource. It's similar to the, what's the CAL FIRE one called? I should know.
Like we have a map that's just at fire.ca.gov. It has the incident map on there.
Yeah, they pull from many of the same sources. You guys want to go back? We're out of time, but you guys want to go back or practice on any one of these? Who has not used the fire camera networks? A couple people. Jeff, can you put the desktop up on here? Sure. Thank you. We'll do that one, and we'll do flight radar, and we'll be out of time.
If you want, I'll drive it. You can.
Okay. Yeah, even better. Let me get the laser. Sometimes when I go down to border fires, people laser us from Tijuana, on the Tijuana side.
There we go.
So let's see, alert CA.
What I sometimes do is just over California. Can't remember where it's yet.
You guys can follow along in your phone. It's kind of clunky in the phone, but it is doable.
So we're California home.
So this will tell you about the technology and the platform, and then we can click on live feeds here. We're going to have all of the cameras all up and down the state. There are other networks too. There was the programs were co-managed, and they had some kind of falling out, and they bifurcated. There's two different research networks. So here we are in Escondido. You can just drag the map around, and we see we've got the all of the cameras that are in this box show up here. So this is a live view.
This is where the fire is. The fire's out. Right on the other side of Palomar was that structure fire. We just worked, but it's out now, so it's not going to show up. Certain fire departments, myself included. I'm sorry,
Brian Norton.
Some of us have access to the cameras where we can actually zoom in, and we can move the cameras around if we need to be able to follow the fire. What's nice is also, taking your
Nope, not at all.
when you zoom in, it's actually going to show you just the cameras that are within this view. So, we can see Birch Hill, and you can see a lot of fires. I like watching them, see what the fire's doing. I watched the Otay fire. I've actually seen the aircraft dropping retardant water following these. I can see whether in the distance, I can see what color the smoke is, whether the fumes it's getting bigger, the plume is getting larger or smaller, and you can also. I know why I don't see that here. Talk to me.
There you go.
This particular one. Here it is, down here. So you see down at the bottom where it says live, and I don't have a fire up here for you to watch, but I can also set it so I can see what the fire's been doing the last 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 12 hours. I'll do 12 hours, so if the fire was burning, I could watch it from the nighttime all the way into the morning, afternoon, and see where it's progressing and how fast it's going. Back to you.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Can you pull up flight radar 24, please? Reject. All right, so these are all of the aircraft that have their ADS-B transponders turned on. So no secret CIA black helicopters or anything like that. But
You said turned on?
yeah, so everyone that's turned on,
So you're telling me all those are out there right now?
Right now.
absolutely.
This is live.
Yep.
So all those contrails you see people talking about seeing and stuff, I just bring this up and say, yep, they're all up there.
Yeah, you can trap it.
Does this include getting the airspace and flying it, right? Is that
If you click on them, you'll be able to see their elevation, I think. Or maybe not with that premium account, I'm not sure.
No, you can't. So this is Delta Airlines Flight 633, talks about where it left from. It's going from New York to San Diego.